Hi, and welcome to your Inside Power. I'm your show host, Patricia Stepler, where we are working on how to utilize the powers that we have inside of us to absolutely change our world and create the reality that we want. Today, my topic is on how to make decisions, and not just any decision, but a decision to win. Lots of us want things in life. We want something different, but we never really fully make the decision that's necessary in order to start to create it. There are three types of goals that we have. We have an A-type goal, which is something that you know you can do, probably because you've already done it before. And then there's a B-type goal, one where if things all line up the way you think they're going to, you know you'll hit it. Now, neither one of those have particular huge amount of excitement or inspiration. What you have to first figure out is, what do you really, really want? Because generally what we really want, we think of as a wish or a dream. And we think of it as a wish or dream because we have no idea how to do it. And we think because we have no idea how to do it, that we can't possibly accomplish it. We need to first figure out what it is we want. And that's what we call a C-type goal. One where we just want it to happen and we know we have to have it, and yet we don't have the resources or the knowledge or the people maybe surrounding us to really help us accomplish it. But yet those are goals that inspire us because it's what's burning inside of us that we want. So we have to get that goal, and we have to get us on the same frequency. You see, everything is vibrating, everything is moving, everything has its own frequency. That goal or that dream that you have no idea how to achieve is on a frequency that's much higher than where you are currently. And that's why it's so inspirational to you. But you have to learn to live on that frequency. You have to see yourself with the good that you desire, see yourself with the things that you would do if you had that goal. To move to that higher frequency, you must adapt your life to what it would look like if you're on that frequency. So let's say you want an enormous change in your income. Let's say you make 100,000, you want to make $1 million. But you have no idea how to make $1 million. You have no idea what it would take to earn that kind of money, or even maybe what position you need in order to earn that. Perhaps you want to start your own business. You have to start living on that frequency of, what would my life look like? What would it feel like if I earned $1 million? And when you do that, you're going to shift to that higher frequency, and you start to live like you're on that frequency. Now, don't go spending the money like you're on that frequency, but learn to live like you're on that frequency. Bob Proctor, my dear friend and mentor, told me one time, or he mentioned this in a seminar. He said, to move to a considerably higher frequency of thought, you must first consent and adapt to the ideas and feelings the new frequency represents. At the suggestion of a move, your paradigm will instantly put you in a royal battle, and it will continually fight you. Okay. You must take conscious control over the paradigm, remove and replace it. Let's talk about that, because that's a major paragraph here. So he starts out with, to move to a considerably higher frequency of thought, you must first consent and then adapt to the ideas and feelings that the new frequency represents. So you want this big goal, this C-type goal. You have no idea how to get it, but it's what you want, not what you need. Goals should never be what you need. It should be what you want. So you need to adapt to, what's he say, the ideas and the feelings. So we do that through meditation, through visualization. We do that through thinking constantly throughout the day of what it would be like to be on that frequency. But you have to start seeing yourself living on that frequency. How do you act? What thoughts do you have in your mind when you're on that higher frequency? What kind of things do you do? What feelings do you have? What answers to questions that you're asked do you give when you're sitting on that higher frequency? And you have to learn to live up there on that frequency of the goal. Then he says, at the suggestion of a move, your paradigm will instantly put up a royal battle. Paradigm is your habitual thought patterns that you currently have. And those thought patterns protect and keep you safe. So when you start to shift what it is you want, those paradigms are going to tell you why you can't do it, why there's no way that it will ever happen for you. And they're going to put up a fight with you because they are there to protect and keep you safe and keep you in your comfort zone and keep you in that box. He goes on to say, and it will continually fight you. It will continually fight you. Every move you make is going to be casting doubt and fear and wonder in your life. Every time. So what does he say you need to do? You must take conscious control over the paradigm, remove and replace it. You have to make a decision that every time you get that voice of fear or voice of doubt or questioning what you're doing, who do you think you are? Why do you think you can have that? That's not possible for you. Every time you get that, you dismiss it and you tell yourself, it doesn't matter. That's what I want. That's what I'm doing. That alone will give you freedom. It will give you the freedom that only comes when you have chosen to change your life. So instantly, you will move to that new picture. Once you make the decision, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm going, I am going to do everything I need to do to get there. I'm not giving up. I'm going to continue to work until I reach my goal. Once you make that decision, you've made a choice and you've freed yourself of ever wondering about it. Instantly, you start to move to that position where you live. Now, does that mean you stay there? No, you have, remember, he said it's a constant battle. Bob Proctor, constant battle. So you have to continually overcome it. It sounds very easy, just remove it and replace the paradigm. It's not that easy because those paradigms are so strong and they will continue to pull you back and pull you back until you've overcome it. And then what happens? You've just built yourself a new paradigm. And then the next time you want to make a move, you're going to do it all over again. But you do it the next time with the knowledge and the process of how to do it. Steve Jobs says, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. You have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in the future. Now, what's he talking about there? Well, when you have those doubts, those bad feelings that come to you, and why do we have those bad feelings? Well, it's because we move in and out of where we really want to be. So one minute, and this happens to me, one minute you've got this vision of where you want to go and you believe you can get there, and then something happens. And all of a sudden, you're back to that lousy feeling. You feel bad, like, woe is me, kind of the Eeyore. I always call it the Eeyore because Eeyore is one of my favorite characters. But you have that, woe is me feeling, and nothing ever happens right for me. And then you've shifted around, you start moving back up to that higher vibration, and then something happens again and you're back. So you continually move in and out. And when you have bad feelings, when you feel like something's not going right for you, you need to start to make that shift within yourself. Figure out what it is you need to do in order to change your thought patterns. So what Steve Jobs said in this quote was, so often we think that we know everything, and that if we set a goal, we should know every step exactly how it's going to happen. And we create our path. Why do we think that? Because we don't understand. We are not aware of how the world works. So we set these goals. Well, then maybe one of those sub goals to get to that big goal doesn't work. And then you start to question it, and then you start to feel bad because you think, why isn't it not happening for me? And what did I do wrong? And I guess it's just not for me. What wasn't meant? And we have all those crazy thoughts in our head. What he's saying here is you can't connect those dots going forward. You can't figure out what it is you need to do to move forward. Those dots will only connect when you've reached the goal and you look back and you say, now I get it. I had to have that happen, because if step 2 didn't go wrong, I would have never met so-and-so who led me to the thing that changed the whole track. And that's where you need to get to. You have to figure out the dots will not connect the way you think they will. But when you reach your goal, you'll look back and you'll see exactly how it happened. So there is no limit. There is no end to the possibilities of what you can achieve. And isn't that the good news? There is no limit. The only limit is your own thinking. That's it, your own thinking. When you reach a goal, you will realize how much further you could have gone had you only been aware and had you only trusted what was in your heart. For some reason, which I can't explain, if I could, it'd be great. But for some reason, we feel like things have to be a struggle, and they just don't. But because we struggle, we think everything is hard. And Napoleon Hill talks about how when the riches start to come to you, and riches could be monetary, could be something totally different, whatever your goal is. But when you reach that goal and things start to snap together, you wonder what happened during all those years that you struggled. You struggled because you do not understand, and we are not aware. And sometimes we think we should be able to reach a goal further, but we don't realize how much we have to prepare and how much we have to change in order to get to that goal. See, when you're moving to that higher frequency, a higher frequency of thought, you have to become somebody different. And I know I had a client one time, and they didn't quite understand the concept. And I kept telling them, you have to change. You have to be somebody you're not. And they thought it was something in an outward appearance, and they were very comfortable with the way they dressed and looked and so on. I said, no, we're not talking about that. You have to change, because everything you have gotten because you were aware of how to get it. But that goal is so much higher, and something has to change, whether it's your thought patterns, whether it's your visualization, whether it's your acting as if you've got that goal. Something has to change first before you reach the goal. So there's energy, there's energy flowing to us, to and through us at all times. And what we have to realize is that we have to allow that energy to come in and work with us, and allow it to flow freely with us. And when we're willing to make a committed decision, one that we have to have, when we do that, then things will change. But as I said, most people don't know how to make that kind of committed decision. A decision I'm talking about, a committed decision, is when we cut off any means that failure will happen. And we only look for the possible outcome. So it might be, if there's a story, and I can't remember the whole thing, but there was a battle going on, and they sailed in on their ships. And the captain said, burn the ships. We either win or we die right here in this island. There's no turning back. So there's no retreat for your goal. And that's a committed decision. When you're going to accomplish it, no matter what happens, you are going after it. Dr. Carol Hildebrand says this: committed decisions show up in two places, your calendar and your checkbook. Now, in her mind, the calendar is, when are you taking time to learn? And this could be daily. Maybe you set up a structure daily where you're learning something new every day, and you're studying books and videos and tapes or CDs or whatever it is that you need to learn something new. Perhaps it's going to workshops, going to seminars, going to conventions where you're learning what you need. Maybe it's having a coach, like booking time with me, having a program that you're doing where you're learning constantly. But it shows up in your calendar. And the other place she says it shows up is in your checkbook. How much money have you used in a year to purchase the needed items that you need, to purchase the coaching that you need, to purchase the books, to purchase the videos, to purchase the programs that you need to change your life? Because nothing's going to change unless you do something different. And the only way change will happen is when you become more aware of what you need to do and go out and accomplish it. Now, that can be painful because it means you're going to have to spend some money. When you find the right things, you will find that you've spent the money well. Now, are there mistakes that people make? Oh, yes. I have made multiple mistakes spending money on things that either I wasn't ready for at the time, and the people were not honest enough to say to me, you know what, you need to do this, this, and this first, and then come back to me. Wouldn't that be what somebody really ought to do? Or perhaps it was something that once I got into it, I realized it was in over my head, which again, same thing, I wasn't ready for it. Or maybe I hadn't changed enough. We have to figure that out, but it does show up in our calendar and in our checkbook. Absolutely. When Napoleon Hill decided to write the book Think and Grow Rich, Andrew Carnegie was interviewing him. Actually, Napoleon Hill came to interview Andrew Carnegie because he was working for a magazine or newspaper or something at the time. And he was thrilled to be sitting there in front of Andrew Carnegie. And Andrew Carnegie, unbeknownst to Napoleon Hill, was looking for somebody who would write this philosophy of life, because he thought it a shame that people like he, and Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, some of these people were around back at the same time. He thought it was such a shame that they would go to their graves with all the information inside of them. So he was looking for somebody to write this philosophy. And so he spent several days with Napoleon Hill. It was supposed to be a very short interview and turned into a several day long interview. And at the end of that time, he asked Hill if he would devote maybe 20 years of his life with not gaining a penny at the time to develop this philosophy. Now, what he didn't know was that Andrew Carnegie had a stopwatch, and he was giving him 1 minute to make a decision. And after about 20 seconds, he said he didn't know where it came from, but he told Andrew Carnegie, yes, he would do it, and he could count on him. Right then, he made a committed decision. Now, Andrew Carnegie could have given him all kinds of money to do the study, but he knew if he did that, it would not prove that any person could follow the steps in the philosophy and change their life. So Hill had to figure it out on his own. And a lot of times his family and friends, they made fun of him for what he was doing because he wasn't making any money from it. But here's what Andrew Carnegie told Hill to say. Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, but I'm going to challenge you at the post and pass you at the grandstand. Now, as Hill tells the story, when Andrew Carnegie told him to write that down so he could repeat it 2 times a day, he looked at Andrew Carnegie and says, Mr. Carnegie, you know that's never going to happen. And to which Mr. Carnegie said, well, no, it won't unless you believe it can. Keep in mind, Andrew Carnegie was the wealthiest man at that time. But he told him to repeat it 2 times a day. And he said he went home the first night and his brother was living with him. He had promised to help his brother get through college, which now he was not going to be able to do because he was on this venture where he wasn't going to get paid to do this. And he said the first time he said that statement, Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal achievement in life, but I am going to challenge at the post and pass at the grandstand. He whispered it so nobody could hear him. But he said after he did it 2 times a day, about the middle of the month, he started to believe that maybe he could do it. And by the end of the month, he knew he could. Just by changing his words, he was altering the patterns in his mind to believe that he could do it. Now, the best way to do this is to look in the mirror. And we call this mirror work. When you look with one eye and say it, then look with the other eye and say it, and then the other eye, keep going back and forth about 6 times so that you can start to embed that thought into your mind. We have to learn how to make a decision. Make a decision where you are going to live or die on that hill. It's your choice. Make a decision to reach your goal and don't allow your thinking or obstacles to get in the way. When you make a committed decision, it is like saying, I am going to get there, wherever there is for you. That's a committed decision. Everything else is just kind of wishy-washy. When we flip our brain onto the frequency that we want to be on, that much higher frequency than where we currently are, and start to live there. Live as if it has already happened. You see, your mind doesn't know the difference between real and imaginative. So you can use your imagination to create that picture and to pretend that you're there. And your mind doesn't know the difference. You can look at something with your eyes, but pretend like you're seeing something different. And you'll start to shift that frequency, and things will begin to happen, and you won't understand why. But when you look back, as Steve Jobs said, you can start to connect the dots. You just can't connect them going forward. So power flows to and through you at all times, and you get to choose what it is that you want. That's freedom. That's freedom, the choices that you make. So when we stay unaware or stay in ignorance of how the laws of the universe work and how this whole pattern works, that's when we allow doubt, worry to come into our lives, which produces fear, which goes into giving us that feeling of unease and dis-ease, depression, because we're not aware. And that's what happens when we don't understand how this works, and then we get hit with one of those obstacles or one of those things that just doesn't turn out the way we want it, then we can feel a little down or feel a little depressed. And when we allow that to happen to us, we shift our momentum. So what we need to do is to realize that we have to be more aware. We have to be willing to open up our calendar, to learn, to open up our checkbook, to get help from people and from books and resources that can help you to get to your goal. And when you do that, and when you have enough belief, as as Napoleon Hill said, he had to read that statement until he started to believe it and could see how it would happen. Then we start to understand. We start to gain the knowledge that we need. And that knowledge will turn to understanding at a higher level. We'll understand that we have these intellectual faculties, which is what all your inside power is about, is how to utilize these intellectual faculties. And we'll study, we'll develop faith, and then we'll be well-being. So we'll feel good instead of feeling depressed or like something's wrong. So I have this quote, and I'm not sure where it came from, but I want you to realize we do have a choice. It is our choice which way we go. But here's the quote. It says, faith is the ability to see the invisible on the screen of your mind. Faith is the ability to see the invisible on the screen of your mind. So you're seeing what you want, not what's in front of you. To believe in the unreasonable, and that will permit you to receive what the masses call impossible. So when you're able to believe in what most people think you're crazy, it's never going to happen. When you're able to believe in that, then that gives you the ability to receive what most people would call impossible. And then they'll say you're lucky. Well, aren't you lucky that happened? No, there's no luck. It was hard work. It was constantly changing that paradigm. And that is hard work. Not physically hard, but it's a constant battle, which is why most people don't do it. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And when you're able to make those shifts, you will start to attract to you everything you need to accomplish that goal. And then once you get the goal, you look back and say, I could have gone further. I could have gone further. If you want some more information or some help with this, I have lots of resources I can point you towards. And, can certainly book a call with me and we'll see where you're at, where you want to go, and allow me to help you to get there. This is Patricia Stepler with your Inside Power. I want you to make it a great day.